The FPV UK Article 16 Operational Authorisation is a rule set within the specific category which allows FPV UK members to fly any drone or model aircraft up to 25 kilos for recreational purposes only. In this diagram we've shown the area where you can fly in this darker green colour, and you'll see it butts up right up to the edge of a built-up area. You must not fly over or within a built-up area, but you can fly right to the edge of it. And a built-up area is defined as an area substantially used for industrial, recreational, commercial or residential purposes. There is a caveat to that. You can fly in a built-up area if it's used only for recreational purposes, e.g. a park, but it must be supported by a risk assessment. You can find guidance on how to do a simple risk assessment in our handbook, handbook.fpv.uk. There's guidance in there on how to do a risk assessment. There's also an example and a template for you to use. The next thing to bear in mind, you must not fly within 30 metres of uninvolved people. So that forms this imaginary bubble around uninvolved people. You must not fly within 30 metres. You can actually overfly people, but just bear in mind only if it's safe to do so. Always Article 241 applies. A person must not recklessly or negligently cause or permit an unmanned aircraft to endanger any person or property. So just keep that in mind. The other thing about distances from uninvolved people, we've got this must not fly within 30 metres horizontal distance of assemblies of people. So an assembly is a gathering where persons are unable to move away due to the density of the people present. So if you imagine a concert, there's maybe 10,000 people in a very small area, and they can't get out the way if a drone comes towards them. So we must not overfly that under any circumstances. You have to keep at least 30 metres horizontal distance from an assembly of people. Other things to mention, there is no separation criteria for uninvolved people for sub 250 aircraft. So this doesn't actually apply for sub 250. You must keep the aircraft within visual line of sight at all times, and that applies under all the rule sets. You must always keep your drone within visual line of sight. This is about registration. CAA registration is required unless the aircraft is sub 250 without a sensor able to capture personal data, e.g. a recording camera. So if it's an FPV drone or model aircraft and it doesn't have a recording facility, you're purely using the video with which to fly the aircraft, then you don't need to register with the CAA and have an operator ID. The same is true if it's a toy, and a toy is defined as exclusively or not designed for under 14s. So if it's a toy that was designed for under 14s, even if you're an adult flying it, then you don't have to register it with the CAA. You don't have to register yourself with the CAA, rather, as an operator. You can fly aircraft using motion controllers, gesture control, virtual sticks, etc., as long as the aircraft only moves when you give it a control input. Doesn't matter how you do that, how you give it a control input, but it must only move when you tell it to. It can't be flying around of its own volition, except in the case of an emergency, in which case it can do a return to home. So you can set that as your fail-safe. In case of control link failure or low battery, you could set an emergency return to home. Or if you became disorientated or had some problem, some emergency scenario, you can press the emergency the return to home button and let the drone fly back to you. But you mustn't use that as a matter of course. Automated modes that don't move the aircraft in physical space, such as panorama, 360, selfie mode, tripod mode, beginner mode, all those modes, just even the sort of position hold where it's holding its position perfectly against the wind, and it's obviously using automation to do that. They're all permitted as long as the aircraft doesn't move in physical space of its own volition. You must hold an FPV UK Certificate of Competency Drone Law or a CAA Flyer ID to fly under the Article 16 Operational Authorisation, and you must have read the Article 16 Operational Authorisation document and sort of ticked a box to say that you agree to be bound by its terms. That's it. So that's the Article 16 operational authorization. It's absolutely fantastic, and I think you'll enjoy flying with it. It gives everybody a lot more freedom than we used to have. We used to have to stay 150 meters from a congested area, which is now called a built-up area. Now we can fly right up to the edge of it. We used to have to keep 50 meters from what used to be called people not under your control. We now have 30 meters from what's now called uninvolved people. So in all ways, it's better. Just one final thing to mention, 120 meters, same as all the other rules, you must not fly above 120 meters, 400 feet. There is a little exception to that for fixed wing aircraft, which you'll find in the Article 16 operational authorization document. Yeah, I hope that was useful. Thanks a lot.